Hello and welcome to the run-up. My name is Maureen Mwezigwe, and I also have Adebayo Oloake joining me virtually. Hello, Adebayo.
Good morning, Maureen, and good morning, viewers.
Good to have you join us today. How has it been for you? Haven't seen you nor spoken with you since after the presidential election.
True, I've also been trying to digest everything. It's been quite interesting and a mixed bag, some positives to take from the elections and some negatives, to consider as well. And of course, some voters have been disillusioned. Some contestants have also been disillusioned. And we're at the stage now where some critical legs of the state will have to play their constitutional roles, the courts in particular. So we're all waiting to see what happens.
Indeed, we're waiting to see what happens. The Supreme Court has a lot to do right now. Nigeria has never seen any presidential election overturned before at the Supreme Court. So this is a lot to. We're waiting for a lot to play out in the coming weeks to come. And the president-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu is now at the Defense House. He has a lot of work to do to unite Nigerians and to move this nation forward, right?
Absolutely, he does. And as has been the tradition, the president-elect moves to the Defense House, which is more secure, because now his security is important, of course. And then there will be a deluge of people who would like to see him, interest groups, communities, to bring forward what they would like him to do. And I think in particular, those who are looking for political appointments will constitute the biggest chunk of those who need his attention. But he as well, I'm sure, will begin to receive some briefing from the present government in order for him to essentially look at his plans, see whether he needs to change anything or reshape anything, and then, of course, plan for his inauguration. So this will be very busy times for him.
Indeed. Well, on the 11th of March, it will be the turn for the election of state governors and members of the state houses of assembly. This will involve 31 of the nation's 36 states, except that governorship elections will hold in only 28 of the affected states. A total of 837 contestants, sponsored as usual by political parties, will contest the 28 state governorship seats, with that of Imo State, Kogi State, and Bayelsa State to be held on the 11th of November, while a total of 10,231 contestants will vie for the state houses of assembly. With a lot of questions surrounding the declaration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, aka Jagaban, as winner of the 2023 presidential election, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, and his People's Democratic Party, PDP counterpart, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, yesterday rejected the outcome of last Saturday's presidential poll and vowed to challenge it in court. The United States government has asked the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to address its technical shortcomings ahead of the governorship elections. With the world watching how the elections was conducted, especially Nigerians in diaspora, it raises concerns about the outcome and the conduct of the 2023 elections will affect Nigerians in diaspora as we head towards the governorship election on the 11th of March. Well, joining us to discuss this is Okelue Ikenna Ernerst, Acting Secretary, Association of Anambra State in Istanbul, Turkey. And he is also a member, Association of Anambra People in Europe. How are you, Ikenna? Ikenna, can you hear me? Okay, he's going to fix whatever technical issues he's having, and then we'll have him back. We'll also have Pastor Benjamin Kwentua, Principal Consultant, Purpose Track Consulting, and Senior Pastor of Worship Ordained Assembly, both located in New York, USA. You're welcome, Mr. Benjamin Kwentua.
Good morning, Maureen. I want to say good morning, viewers, and I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Okay, I'm told that Ikenna has joined us. Hello, Ikenna.
Yes.
How are you doing in Turkey?
We are fine. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. We're happy to see that you're okay. What has happened in Turkey is so heartbreaking. And while we are happy to see that you, Ikenna, are doing well and are able to join us to discuss the progress of our nation.
Thank you.
Well, no doubt, those of you living abroad have keenly watched what happened, and you are keenly watching it even as it continues to unfold, because the dust raised by the events of the 25th of February is far from being settled. Tell us your overviews of all that played out during the elections. Let me start with you, Ikenna.
Okay. Period before this election, so many mind-changing orientation was going on. For we as Nigerians in diaspora, we begin to have hope that we are beginning to have a new nation, a country that we can be proud of, a country that we can beat our chest and say, yes, I am in Nigeria. But what really happened on the 25th of February was so disappointing. I won't say that's an election, but I would say just, I'm looking for the perfect word to use, but then it's not an election. We saw what happened on that day.
What were some of the things you saw? What were some of the things you saw when you monitored?
We saw a lady, Jennifer, who was stabbed on the face because he came out to vote for our father's land, to exercise her legal rights. We also saw a situation whereby in front of a law enforcement agent, somebody was threatening people, if you're not here, if you're not voting for so party, please kindly leave. We're not joking. In front of the police. You could imagine that. And notice happened. We also saw a situation whereby people snatching ballot boxes, even with police uniform and with police van. Not even that the vehicle was a kind of, maybe is a neutral vehicle, but with our tax-paying vehicle, the police force van, taking a ballot box, snatching them, rough riding. What even don't even mind, even it smashed the people within that place, and so many of them. For me, I don't think what we had on the 25th of February was an election. And to even crown it up, this election I would say, is the worst election ever in the history of Nigeria. Why did I say so? We've seen so many electoral malpractice and stuff like that, but in this case, we find out that we saw even an executive governor with his escorts and his thugs going to the polling booths to snatch and scatter the election balloting. It happened in River States. It happened in Edo States. So I don't think what we have here is an election.
All right, we'll come back to you, Okelue. I would probably want to, at some point, have to ask you to compare if you've witnessed any elections conducted where you live, and compare that with what has played out here. But let me go to Benjamin Kwentua, who resides in New York. Benjamin, I know that you watched keenly, just as I know that so many other Nigerians living abroad monitored the situation keenly. Is your observation any different from what Okelue Ikenna has painted? Tell us your overviews.
Yeah, for those of us over here, I think that one of the greatest challenge for us is how we have decided to showcase ourselves to the world, because if for anything, I think this is one of the elections that has involved the highest number of registered voters in the history of the country. And this is also the election that the INEC has actually made the highest promise to Nigerians, and also to the world. My concern, is INEC not being able to follow its own guidelines, because when it comes to what my brother Mr. Okelue has just said, anybody can have proofs of pockets of everybody committing one illegality or the other. But where I stand is when you come out to say these are the guidelines and we are going to adhere strictly to it, and then before the whole world you begin to break your own rules, it tells a lot about who we portray ourselves to be. And I think that is a major concern for me.
Benjamin, I know you lived in South Africa at some point. Now you live in the U.S. Have you monitored elections in any of these countries where you reside, where you stayed and where you now stay?
Yes.
Can you give us some comparisons?
Okay, let me start with South Africa. The thing is, for as much as the people are disenfranchised with, the ANC in South Africa, there is a collective resolve to say, you know what, we need to maintain the black supremacy. So, but that is not to suppress other parties. Like in South Africa, when the EFF came up, when Julius Malema, broke away and started the EFF movement, as much as to the run-up of every election, the ANC, the African National Congress, want to suppress them, it does not go to the polls. When it comes to the polls, it is important to the nation to have a credible election. And when they do that, everybody has the right to vote without fear of intimidation, without fear of being oppressed or suppressed. Also, I find also comparing side by side, I've been privileged to witness 2 presidential elections here in the United States. And what I found different, which is what, forms the foundation of, how I feel, we have shamed ourselves to the world, is the fact that here in the United States, the guidelines are very clear. You don't win by majority votes. Everybody knows that. So it's one thing, though it is okay because you may not stand the chance of winning if you don't have majority votes. But here, the electoral board says there is something called the electoral college, and every state is awarded a number of points. So when you win, even if you win by 1 million to 1, you can only get the number of votes from the electoral college from that state. So by so doing, the state you must win if you have to become the president of the United States. And hence, when Donald Trump, the ex-president, the immediate past president, came into power, Hillary had more votes. But everybody knew the law. And though she had this thing, everybody adhered strictly to the rules. And because of that, he was declared, the president. Same thing happened to him in the last election. Joe Biden, it didn't matter if he had more votes than Joe Biden. The same rules that brought him to power was the same rules that ensured he was voted out. And so when the INEC chairman came up with the issue of the beavers and sending out results in real time, because don't forget this, because when you talk about law now, you have to take in context every promise that was made. He said the results will be sent in real time. Hence, when you cannot keep your word, I will go with what the Labour Party is saying. That's why, if you notice, from my own observation, the Labour Party is not even saying we won. They said we can prove we won. Mm-hmm. However, they are standing on there was no election. Why? Because it has to be based on guidelines. And if those guidelines are not followed strictly, then everything has to be redone.
Well, thank you, Benjamin. Well, the Labour Party and the PDP yesterday made press conferences where they both claim to have won these elections, and they're both going to challenge the outcome at the courts. Let me go back to you. Okelue, Ikenna. I don't know how long you've stayed in Turkey and if you've witnessed any elections there. Can you tell us and what you saw play out, comparing it to what played out here in Nigeria?
Okay, for me here in Turkey, I've not really witnessed an election, but by God's grace, I'm going to witness one come a few months from now. But
All right.
Then, okay. But then with the previous elections and research we've done, and even what's happening now, you can't compare what's happening here with what's happening in Nigeria. Do you understand? Because election here is not as do or die. It's not as do or die. It's not as heartbroken. Just like every Nigerian here should know that what happened on 25th of February is heartbroken. It's heartbroken. We're not happy. We're not proud to say we are Nigerian. What we saw.
Okay, so millions of Nigerians live abroad with an estimated annual remittance of about $25 billion. $25 billion. And so that means that those Nigerians living abroad play a very huge role in the development of Nigeria. The incoming president, no doubt, has the task of getting their attention so that they can also contribute to the development of Nigeria. What structures would you like to see put in place? Because right now, whether we like the outcome of the election or not, someone has been declared winner, and that is Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu of the APC. What structures would you like to see the incoming president put in place that you think would attract the diaspora to look towards Nigeria and confidently invest?
Okay. First, I think the incoming president Bola Ahmed Tinubu should first try to rebuild the confidence of the Nigerians, both home and diaspora, because it will help to carry them along in all his policies. Then the incoming president should also try to tackle critically this issue of insecurity in Nigeria. And I think that's the major thing he should start from. If we could tackle the issues of insecurity, definitely, because without security in any nation, there can never be any meaningful development. There cannot be even foreign investors who will not come. Nobody will want to come to a country where his investment is not secured. So security is the number one thing that the incoming president should look into and tackle it. Then secondly, the incoming president should guarantee Nigerians of constant power supply. It is a basic thing that the government should do for us. It should give us the constant power supply so that we can have confidence. Because looking at, for instance, employment, like I was doing this campaign, I hear talk about employing, recruiting the youths and stuff like that, recruit them in the military, creating jobs and stuff like that. You can't achieve these things. You can't achieve any meaningful development in the dark country, in the dark world. He needs to look into the problem of power, and it's very, very critical. If he can achieve that, Nigerians are industrial people. Nigerians do not even need government to survive. Because if you look at critically what is happening in our country, Nigeria, if you go, for instance, you go to Lagos State, look at the structural development you see there, the infrastructures you see there. I tell you, 60% of the infrastructures you see in Lagos State are built by individuals, not governments. If you go to Anambra State, you go to Port Harcourt, go to Abuja, these are individuals. So Nigerians are industrial people. Government have less job to do. But I would say in the global world, Nigeria is the easiest country to govern if actually you have a leader who have that capacity, who have that political way to effect positive changes. Because what you just need to just put the right things in place. For instance, how can a country develop, or how can a country grow where you can't boast of even pipe-borne water. I wonder when last we talk about water supply, commission of water or minister of water and stuff like that. I don't know if it really exists. I wonder when last can you say that we have, like, for instance, here in Turkey, even the most wretched house here has water and you can find electricity. But I don't think those things exist in Nigeria anymore. There's no place you come to Nigeria now and you say that you can just come in and on your tap and you see water flowing. So these are the things, these are basic things. Then what does it take Nigerian government to help us to have good roads? What does it take Nigerian government to provide the basic infrastructures that will enhance the individual lives of the people? Because what matters in governance is the people. Once the people are well taken care of, that means your administration has something to write home about. But once the people are not taken care of, then there's nothing. You know, I'm telling you for real, sincerely.
Okay, all right. Ikenna, just hold your thought. At this point, Adebayo, I'm sure you have questions or something to say to what some of our brothers abroad and sisters abroad probably thinking right now, and what the guests we have had to say.
Yes, I mean, I've been quite attentive to the dialogue, the conversation, and I understand completely the feelings and sentiments that have been expressed. I was just wondering, you know, we did a comparison with Turkey and with the United States, you know, but I feel really pained because even if you compare us to other African countries, we are not living up to expectation. I can reel off the top of my head countries that have viable democratic structures in Africa. Because when we talk elections, we often tend to say because Nigeria is not getting it right, it means the whole of Africa is not. But I'm happy with the example cited by Benjamin of South Africa, where the ANC has had to cope with the emergence of Julius Malema's economic freedom fighters. And then you have the Democratic Alliance, you know, and then you have other smaller parties. But all these parties have their fair representation in parliament. You know, in Africa, you talk Benin Republic just next to us. They've been having credible elections since former President Soglo was elected, up till today. You go to Namibia, you go to Botswana, you go to South Africa, you go to Senegal, you know, they've been having credible elections, most parts of Africa, you know, but we tend to think if Nigeria is not working, then the rest of Africa is not working. So I'm happy with that example that is cited. But what do we need to do? And this is where it's similar to the question you asked, Maureen. What do we as citizens need to do to make sure that those who have been given responsibility to carry out certain functions, for instance, elections, security, and power, because it's not only government, but we as citizens, what would you guys say we need to do to compel these people who have budgets, who have constitutional powers, to serve us, to make sure that they actually serve us as they're supposed to?
That's a good question. Benjamin, you want to take that?
Okay. First and foremost, I would say the first thing I feel we need to tackle is to ask ourselves, you know, the fundamental question I believe we need to ask ourselves. The first thing I said to myself is, when I came to the United States, the first thing I noticed is, you know, there's a lot of preconceived notion that we have in Nigeria, which is totally different when you actually live abroad, not just visit, but live, and you see how systems are run. The first thing is, we must first and foremost hold ourselves accountable. Because when we talk about government, we talk like these are institutions of robots. No, these are Nigerians. So who is the Nigerian? That's my question. Who is the Nigerian? Do you know that the American economy It's not government driven. It's private sector driven. The only thing the government needs to do is to provide an enabling environment. And that's why I agree with my brother that talks about providing security, providing infrastructure. That's what the government should do. Here in the United States, I'll tell you this, collapse the four major companies, private companies owned by individuals. Here it is called MAGA. If you remove Microsoft, you remove Apple, you remove Google, you remove Amazon. If they shut down those four, the economy of America will go into trauma. It will go into trauma. And so what I'm saying is, who are we as Nigerians? When Peter Obi came up, he came up with a slogan. He said, moving from consumption to production. Because everything we just do back home is buying what we can sell instead of selling what we can buy.
Yes. What
are we producing? I feel it very appalling that in this age and time, we cannot say these are Nigerian products that we can be proud of. Even those who make made in Nigeria products, we rather put made in Italy, and it shows that we are not even sincere. It shows insincerity. It shows lack of dignity in our own labor. And I think those are the questions we need to ask, because we've come to a point where we all need to ask ourselves, who are we and what do we stand for? How come we go outside and then we excel? But when we come home, I remember something that happened, some years ago at the Istanbul airport in South Africa, and I was on my way back to Nigeria, and everybody was in order. That was the first time how we meet this popular, then it was in his prime, Two-Face Idibia, and everybody was just like in order, in queue and everything. And everybody could, you could talk to anybody, reach out to anybody. Everybody was equal. And yet, immediately we landed in Murtala Mohammed Airport in Ikeja. The same people, the same flights. Oh my God.
All right,
what is wrong with us? What's wrong with us as a people?
That's a good question. I remember when. Okay, we'll take a break and then I'll come back to remind you, to tell you what I was told when I first showed my excitement about the beavers and the IRF. Someone said to me, Maureen, it's good to be excited, but don't forget that these are machines that will be manned by Nigerians. We'll be right back. Well, you're welcome back. You're still watching the run-up on PlusTvAfrica. I am Maureen, and I've been speaking with some Nigerians living abroad. Yes, because we have millions of Nigerians scattered all over the world with an annual remittance of about 25 billion naira. No doubt the incoming president has to entice them, to get them interested enough to invest more in the nation. And I've been speaking with Okelue Ikenna Ernerst, who resides in Turkey. I've also been speaking with Benjamin Kwentua, who resides in New York. And of course, I have my co-host, Adebayo Olowake, who's joining me virtually. Okay, gentlemen, let's go back to what we're saying. Who is the government? What is wrong with Nigerians? Why are we not getting things right? Benjamin, you want to continue from where you stopped? Or I think you've spoken a lot. Let me go back to Ernerst. Ernerst,
okay,
do Nigerians behave better in Turkey than they do when they come home in Nigeria here?
Absolutely. Nigeria behaves better in Turkey than when you come back home in Nigeria. You know, let me give you a situation. What has really happened here? There are Nigerians over here that possibly it's not like you like where you are, or you can't just go home. The question is why? Why? There are Nigerians that prefer to go to prison here and stay there until whenever they are released. Because over here, if you are, for instance, here in Turkey, for instance, those Nigerians or foreigners who does not have resident permits, you can be arrested and then you can be deported back to your country. But there are institutions whereby you are arrested and they will keep you in a place. Then if you don't like where you are, you can just tell them, you can tell the police that take me home, let me go back home. But you know there are Nigerians that would prefer to pass through those suffering than going back home. The question is, why is it so?
Mm-hmm.
These are the things, these are the challenges, and these are the things that the youths, and both including the youths, the adults, have looked into and said, we need a change, we need a new Nigeria. You know, we need a new Nigeria, and this we try to see in this 25th election, where the INEC, where Nigerians came out en masse to exercise their franchise with hope for having a new Nigeria, with the belief to arose and awaken that spirit of patriotism, the love for a country. You know, I bet you, if you take a census or you make a research or in Nigeria, I bet you can't get up to 70% of Nigerians who say they repeat themselves and say, I'm proud of to be a Nigerian. Even here,
you know, that reminds me of a statement by Mr. Peter Obi, one of the contenders, presidential, just concluded, not concluded, the presidential election that took place 25th of February. He said, we have Nigeria, but we do not have Nigerians. And that hit me really hard. But you are also trying to differ a bit from what Adebayo and Benjamin are saying, that we Nigerians need to show ourselves to be better than we are showing ourselves. You're saying the buck stops at the doorsteps of the leaders. But I think both points are important, because the government is the people are the government. The presidents that we have, they are people from, you know, they come out of us. They are one of us. We're not going to bring foreigners to come here and make Nigeria work. Those who were used to, in quote, rig the elections are Nigerians. But again, there is a saying that if we have a head that is good, then the body would follow suit. Adebayo, let me go back to you.
Yes, I was actually waiting to hear Benjamin and Ikenna take up something you had highlighted, Maureen, which is the significance of the Nigerian diaspora. $25 billion remitted annually to Nigeria through verified means of forex back home, that is through banks, or Western Union, or any of those authorized channels. This data does not capture monies that are sent, maybe $200 given to somebody, when you get home, give it to my mom, or $400, you know, just talking of what comes in through verifiable channels. This is more than the foreign direct investment that goes to any African country. You go and check it. What Nigerians abroad send home. But now, in addition to the question you were asking, Maureen, as to what Nigerians abroad, you know, could propose to see or to invest at home, I think the question should also arise as to whether these Nigerians abroad ought not to be allowed to vote. If you're sending $25 billion annually to Nigeria, that tells you the strength of the Nigerian diaspora. And why is that Nigerian diaspora not involved in decision-making through elections, for instance? I think it would be interesting to hear what Benjamin and Ikenna have to say. What would the diaspora do? What do they need to do to make sure that they are allowed to vote? Because they are Nigerians, and they are sustaining the economy.
Yeah. Okay, I think you made a very, very, very important point, and I want to thank you for that. The diaspora voting, it's so key, but we also have to note something. We understand the bureaucratic bottlenecks that we have in Nigeria because everybody wants control. And I think that is what the government is still resisting, but I don't think that should last for long. It is very important because when we say, like the figure you gave, 25 billion US dollars annually, my question is, that money is for what? Most of the times, I remember before coming up now, maybe I put on my phone and saying, I get tons, sometimes as much as 300 requests to send money home legally for what? To pay house rent, to pay school fees. So the money means nothing if the money is sent home for consumption. Because this is what I tell my friends back home. When they say, oh, please send me $1,000, send me $500, send me $200. I say, okay, what am I sending the money home for? And most times, like, my children are hungry. There was one that really made me cry, and I almost blocked my friend. He called me, put it on video, and turned the video to his family, his wife and kids weeping. And I'm like, to what end? You want to make a devil out of me? You don't do that. And the reason I'm saying that is this. I said that to say this. When we keep sending money, I said, okay, if I give you this money and you eat today, are you guaranteeing me you won't be hungry tomorrow? So we need to address the fundamental issues. And we're saying if we can be made stakeholders, then we can now say, if we're sending money home, we're sending money home towards this purpose, then the government can now say, oh, there is this platform whereby the Nigerians in diaspora can invest in A, B, and C, which will create value, ultimately create job opportunities, and by so that's why I talk about MAGA. Then we feel to talk about Facebook, owned by Zuckerberg, amongst other businesses here. They are private sector driven, but they also understand. And do you know also that most of the things here in America, interestingly, they have, because of cost effectiveness, that's why China has so much hold on America today, because most of the companies are situated in China, because everything is about maximizing profit. And until you give people a level playing field, you cannot get the best out of it. So my priority then becomes, oh, let me just ensure my family is not hungry. I send money home. But the nation is sick. And if the nation is sick, then the government must come out with policies which, like my brother rightly mentioned, give the Nigerians in diaspora the opportunity to also to know that they are stakeholders. And as stakeholders, then you can make demands. And when you make demands, we have a sense of responsibility to know this is our role, and then we can play it. You are just still channeling the same energy, but you are channeling it now to become more effective and to create more value.
Well, as it stands today, there is no provision in the Nigerian constitution that allows diasporas to vote. I remember I interviewed Festus Okoye, one of INEC's commissioners, and I threw that question at him. Can't policies be made to allow Nigerians living abroad to be able to vote from abroad? But he did say that there is yet no provision for that. And I do understand that some people actually went to court last year seeking to be allowed to vote from abroad. But that case, they lost that case. So let's move on now. As we head to the governorship elections, what is expected of INEC? What is expected of INEC? The battlefield has moved to the states. All the contestants, the major contestants, talking about the APC, the PDP, and the Labour Party, they won 12 states. APC won 12 states, PDP won 12 states, Labour Party won 11 plus the FCT, making it 12 states. What is expected of INEC? And what do you expect? How do you expect that these other parties up their games? Because the battle is still on, right?
Yes. I think for me, for INEC, they are to die straight. You now need to prove to Nigerians that every glitch, though, in every election we all have new terminologies without explanation. So this so-called glitch that they've experienced in the first, INEC must guarantee and reassure Nigerians that it won't happen again, because the governorship, the gubernatorial election will now show Nigerians if indeed the will of the people was trampled upon or not. So I'm expecting a freer and a fairer election, whereby people are not harassed, people are not, you see, even now we've seen, like in the governorship, run up to the governorship election in Lagos State, we've seen people saying, oh, don't vote for IPOB, the Labour Party candidate is IPOB, and all of that. So all that is fine, but on the election day, nobody should be intimidated, nobody should be harassed, no ballot boxes should be snatched, so that the will of the people, because INEC needs to begin to win back the confidence of the people, because I think right now there's absolutely, from where we are over here, there is absolutely no confidence, no vote of confidence in INEC at all. So INEC needs to redeem itself, I think, and this election should provide them the opportunity to do just that.
Ikenna, what do you expect of voters? Already we hear some Nigerians that say they're not going to come out to vote. We also heard some have said they would destroy their PVC. What do you expect of Nigerians coming as we approach the governorship election?
Well, it's simple. It's simple. For me, I think Professor Mahmoud Yakubu has the ample opportunity to prove himself, not just proving himself, to prove himself to be a man of reputed and person and with integrity. Do you know, it takes nothing for you to do the right thing. If the INEC should adhere to what they told the Nigerians, even if Yakubu should adhere to what he told us at Chalant House at the United Kingdom, it's very simple. Mm-hmm. Chatham House, the beavers, the way it was explained, after the accreditation, after whatsoever, you transmit it immediately in each polling unit. It's very simple. So there's no big deal. There's no much thing to say, because it is clear. You can't tell Nigerians that they gave you money. You budgeted for over 300 billion plus, if I'm not mistaken, to carry out a project. And after everything, you started one in Anambra State. You started one in I think is it Osun State, right?
Osun. Yes.
Then after then, at the main events, you are not telling us that in some part of the state the beavers didn't work, and already it's according to the acts, the next guidelines, where a place where the beaver does not work, definitely there's no election. What motivated the people to come out to vote is that beaver system, which says after registration, after election and the rest of them, it will be transmitted immediately. They will be bias free. If I lose, I lose. If I win, I win. There's no need to going to court and stuff like that. And this is the challenge we are facing. So what I need to do to encourage people to come out, even if like for me, even if I'm in Nigeria, definitely I don't think I'm already discouraged. Even right now I'm talking to you, I'm in pains because I love my country. I love Nigeria. So what I should do right now is to ensure that what he promised Nigerians, he should make sure it happens. They make sure they do it the way they promised Nigerians. They should ensure that, just like they told us that the beavers, after accreditation, after the vote, instantly it will be transmitted. We don't want to hear the issues of a network code. I had the situation. We had a situation whereby the INEC official said he'll go to the Ballet's house to upload it. Some said they'll go to the police station to upload it, and so many things like that. Nigerians are not children.
Yeah, no doubt. So many things played out as captured in videos, and this is the internet age. It's not like it used to be back then when we didn't have the internet. So those who contested under different parties have said that they're going to go to court to contest the results, and they've also asked for calm on the part of their supporters. So we just have to trust that they're going to do as they have said, go to the court, present all the evidence, and get justice. Of course, there's also been called to the judiciary to ensure that justice is done and seen to be done. All right, Adebayo, what do you expect to see of those who are contesting for governorship election?
Well, the first challenge they have, and as has been alluded to already by Ikenna and Benjamin, the first challenge they have is to make sure they mobilize people to come out. The elections are not over, and if people, I also feel somehow about this election. I'm not happy simply because I think we are better than the way we came out. This country is far better than that. The Nigerians excelling everywhere, and when things like this happen at home, it totally demarcates us as a country and casts us in bad light. So the governorship election is an opportunity to correct some of those things, and the candidates have a big responsibility to mobilize people, really convince people. I know people are angry, many people are sad, but they need to come out. This is not the time to give up. So the governorship candidates have that responsibility too. I expect the governorship candidates to insist on the use of the beavers. The problem is that if the system doesn't run the way it should run, and it benefits one side, and the side that it benefited decides to keep quiet, the next time it may be that side that will be on the wrong side, that will have the shoe on the wrong side. It's in the interest of all the political parties for the system to work. And then, of course, the question of security.
Yes, I have to interrupt you. Sorry, I have to interrupt you here, Adebayo, because we need to take a break and take the news at 12. But before we go, I'd like to thank Benjamin Kwentua, who has joined us from New York, and Ikenna Ernerst Okelue, who joined us from Turkey. Gentlemen, your inputs are priceless. We thank you so much and hope we can do this again next time, because the elections are far from over. We'll have to keep analyzing, assessing, and watching. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so you're still watching the run-up, and we'll be back after this short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching the run-up on Plus TV Africa. I am Maureen, and we still have our guests who joined us from different parts of the world. Benjamin Kwentua joined us from New York, and Okelue Ikenna Ernerst joined us from Turkey. Gentlemen, glad to still have you there.
Thank you.
My co-host, Adebayo Olowake, is still there with us. Hello, Adebayo.
Hi, Maureen.
Okay, so
it's been quite interesting. So we look forward to the second half of the discussion.
Yes, and I had to ask you to just hold your thought there before we went on that break. You were saying something interesting about what we expect of the governors as we go to the polls again, 11th of this month. What should they be doing? How should they be dotting the I's and crossing the T's?
Yes, the next point that I was about to make before we took the break for the news is a question of security.
Yeah.
We need to look at, the governors need to argue for effective security. We have been talking about the inadequacy of our policing system. And I remember on Plus TV several times I have had cause to raise this issue, but people were not taking it seriously. And we saw that during these elections. We don't have enough police officers in this country. And this issue is not being addressed. Let's even keep the question of state police aside. I know Nigeria will eventually adopt state police very soon. But at the moment, we have a federal police and they are inadequate. And everybody saw that during the elections. The governors need to argue for effective deployment of police officers, for these police officers who have been deployed to be properly briefed about what they're supposed to be doing at the polling stations, and then to make sure that the polling environment is conducive for people. And then, of course, the last point for me is that the governors need to also encourage their supporters to know that this is not a do or die. As Benjamin and Ikenna said at the top of the program, if we're all going to these elections, if the ground rules are clear, if the ground rules are followed, a winner emerges, somebody loses, they should concede as long as the provisions of the law have been followed. The reason now why we are going to have a spate of litigations is simply because some aspects of the electoral law were not followed. So there are so many court cases coming up for the presidential election. Imagine what happens if the rules are still not followed for the governorship election. Imagine how many court cases you are going to have. We need to move away from all this issue of court cases. But if the rules are not being followed, definitely people are going to go to court. And so the governors need to make sure that all of these ground rules are clear. They need to hold meetings with INEC. They need to get a definitive assurance from INEC one more time that these rules are going to be followed.
You're right. We spoke with Adediro, that's the governorship candidate of the PDP, aka Jandor, yesterday with regards to this forthcoming governorship elections. And he's saying that they are ready and they are going to match them wheat for wheat, whatever it takes, because they were taken obviously unawares during the February 25th elections. And so they are much more prepared this time. And also the Labour Party governorship candidate did give a press release, I think 2 days ago, and he alluded to the fact that they are also making alternative, that's private arrangements, security-wise, for the governorship election. So what you said is quite true. They need to ensure that security is fixed, because we saw all that played out. We wouldn't want a situation where Nigerians will refuse to come out this time because of fear for their lives. Wouldn't want that.
Absolutely not. And it's the basic minimum that has to be followed. Our two guests actually made a very, very important statement earlier. If the agencies of the state had requested for budgetary provisions to execute a project and the monies they asked for were provided, they just have to comply. Not complying after you've received the money, after you've received the facilities and everything, and not complying, and then throwing, allowing gaps, ridiculous gaps in the system that was exploited by people. We need to begin to live up to our reputation. And those who want to govern us as governors, they need to begin to show us now that they can actually get those state instruments, authorities, to comply and perform their statutory roles.
But isn't it shocking that up to now we're still having these discussions about state police? Because it's no longer news. We know that we do not have enough of them around to govern the population that we have in this country. But let me go to Benjamin and Ernerst to find out what is the situation, the security situation where you are compared to what we have here.
Okay, very interesting, because I will give you an example. What happened to me here in Turkey? For instance, here in Turkey, I move freely without fear, without fear or threats, because the security here. In fact, I think Turkey is one of the first 10 most secure countries in the world. Actually, the security here is very simple. Unlike in Nigeria, where you see police everywhere, every checkpoint, you see police at every checkpoint. Not just that they are even securing, but what they are actually doing, they are escorting those they are meant to protect. Here, for example, here in Turkey, every street has CCTV cameras everywhere. Every markets here, because I'm into business also here. I'm into business, so I move around all kinds of markets here in Turkey. But there is a law that even every shop, as little as that shop here in Turkey, you must see a CCTV camera. Therefore, it also helps to checkmate and making the work of the police very, very easy and less for them. Now, in that compared to Nigeria, where you cannot even, okay, let's just talk about what happened during this 25th election, where you saw a police, not impersonation, but a police with police uniform, with a police van, snatching ballot votes. Okay, we also saw a situation whereby you were a thug in front of the police addressing and threatening the citizenry of who to vote, and if you don't vote for them, you face certain consequences. Now, how can you now trust that police? How can you not trust the security of that kind of country? For example, okay, let me also go back to what happened in 2020, where the youths at the toll gate were shot, even with the flag of Nigeria. It's heartbreaking. Do you know in Turkey, even if I don't have my ID, I don't have my passport, I'm illegal here, but do you know, just simply that I'm holding a Turkish flag or putting on a Turkish emblem or a vest, walking boldly in the streets, it covers me, it gives me a kind of a guarantee. I believe as I'm talking to you, I don't need to move.
No, that may not be necessary. But let me just act as an advocate for the police here a bit. Not every one of them out there extort money. I've met lovely police people. But as the police PRO will tell you, there are some bad eggs anywhere in every organization. There are really some good cops out there. There's no doubt about that. But the thing he was saying is that we do need more of the good cops to secure the lives of Nigerians. Benjamin, do you have anything to add in terms of security? I mean, with regards to security.
Yeah, thank you very much. What I'd say is, the first thing I'll tell you is the police is the police everywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. Everywhere in the world, police is. It's like there is, in my own words, a peculiar demon that follows that name, police. Because here in America, as effective as the police is, the truth is that we have our own challenges. We have our own problems. The Black Lives Matters, we all know how that happened. So I cannot come and make it look like the police here are angels and the ones in Nigeria are demons.
Because that wouldn't be correct.
So, yeah, that would also be totally incorrect. So the police is the police everywhere. But however, my own is I'm an advocate of a level playing field. What the government did is, whether the police is a good cop or a bad cop, as simple as wearing a body cam, which you saw an oath noted. In fact, if you tamper with it, it means that you are guilty as an officer. So there are little things that we can, introduce, which makes investigation a lot easier. If a policeman says you did this and you say you didn't do it, there's no argument. All they need to do is the commission takes the body cam and they look at it. So, and the investigations are not, that's why everybody, as long as the incident is raised or reported, anybody culpable will be made to face the wrath of the law. And also, the law here is a leveler. So we need to also empower the police to know that the law is a leveler. You are not going to escape simply because you are wearing the uniform. It doesn't exempt you from, being held accountable to the office you have sworn an oath, to uphold. So that is also, very important. Obviously, in Nigeria, we don't have, enough police. However, my question is, why do you need more police when the few that we have are still old salaries? Because if you don't take care of the ones you have, what is the guarantee? What is the motivation? Anybody who wants to join the police now says, okay, you know what, something when I was almost 20 years ago now, when I was in Nigeria, I had this neighbor, who was a policeman, and he just came home and the wife said, oh, there's no food, the children are hungry and everything. And interestingly, we were just there overhearing it. And then he said, okay, give me a few minutes. And he dressed up and he went out. And in a few hours, he was back with a lot of money. Obviously, he's going to do the wrong thing, probably an illegal checkpoint and all of that. But you also agree with me that, even it's almost like if you look at the Lagos-Benin, express. Yes, we talk about the legal police checkpoints and all of that. But taking the police also totally out of that highway has also increased insecurity. So we just need to find the balance. And that's why I said the government must provide the right enabling environment upon which every party can thrive. And that is so vitally important. And when we talk about the global election that is coming, everybody must know that nobody is above the law. Nobody is above the law. I think one of the greatest mistakes of the present sitting government in Nigeria is that they dead the youths, forgetting that, they call themselves the Sorosoke generation. You can't, these people they are so technologically savvy that everything, they have all the evidence the government is asking for, it's in everybody's hand. And it's not there, and they're putting it out there in the public space.
Yeah.
So
and I guess, and that's probably one of the reasons the youth are very, very angry, because they are technologically savvy and they know what could have gone wrong with the system. And it is about the system, really, gentlemen. That is what it's about, the process, a process that can be relied upon, a system that works for all. It's not about any party. It's not about any individual. It's about the nation. Having a system, and which is why most people are living abroad. Most Nigerians, if you speak to them, they will say they're not living abroad because they prefer it over there, but because the system works and makes it easy for them to prosper. And so that is the yearnings of most Nigerians, to make Nigeria work, put in place systems that can enable prosperity. Your final words, gentlemen, before we go, just 1 minute each. I've been told to wrap up. Benjamin, I'll end with you. I'll start with you.
Okay, my final words is, please, we are first Nigerians. And because we are Nigerians, we can be called a country. We need to take back our country. We need to stand for what is right. And the answer and the solution for me is understanding that our life is our responsibility. It is a vehicle that requires that we take the driver's seat.
Ernerst.
So let us
Thank you, Benjamin. Ernerst.
It's simple. We need a new Nigeria. We need a working institution. We need a country that we can hold on and say, this is my country. This is my country. I am proud to be in Nigeria. And also, we need our judiciary, which is the last hope of the common man, to prove to us that we are actually the last hope of the common man.
Thank you. I think that's a good place to wrap it up, Ernerst. And Adebayo, my co-host, virtual co-host, your final word before we wrap up.
The system worked in Kenya. They had something similar to Beavers. And when the opposition appealed, the case didn't even take 1 day. It was dismissed because the evidence was there. And there was no argument after that. Let us all contribute to make the system work.
Let us all contribute to make the system work. Many thanks to you, gentlemen, for this discussion. It became necessary because I'm very much aware that many Nigerians came from abroad for this election. So I know that you are very invested in the country and you're very concerned about what's going on. Benjamin Kwentua joined us from New York, and Okelue Ikenna Ernerst joined us from Turkey. Thank you so much. My co-host has been Adebayo Oluwake. It's been the run-up on Plus TV Africa. I am Maureen Menongwezigwe. Join us again on Monday. Bye-bye.